Iran begins the funeral ceremonies for the late Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi following his death in a helicopter crash, the focus now is on who and what's next for Iran's government. According to reports, the death of Iran's president is unlikely to lead to any immediate changes in Iran's ruling system or to its overarching policies, which are decided by the supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. But Ebrahim Raisi, who died in the helicopter crash on Sunday, was seen as a prime candidate to succeed the 85-year-old supreme leader, and his sudden death makes it more likely that the job could eventually go to Khamenei's son. Now, some have pointed to the incumbent supreme leader's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, who's a mid-level cleric, as a potential contender for the top post. But that would be a shift from the principles of the Islamic Republic, which overthrew a repressive monarchy in 1970 and has prided itself for shaking off hereditary rule. A protege of Khamenei who rose through the ranks of Iran's theocracy, Raisi, who was 63 years old, was widely seen as a leading candidate to take over from the 85-year-old supreme leader, though it was far from being a foregone conclusion in Iran's opaque politics. The Iranian establishment had invested heavily in Raisi through his presidency, seeing him as the potential successor to Khamenei. Observers say that he, in fact, had been groomed for years to be elevated to the supreme leader's position. Iran will now have to hold elections and choose a new president within 50 days, according to the country's constitution, about a year sooner than what had been planned. State media had reported that the election will take place on the 28th of June, with candidates to be registered between May 30th and June 3rd. Raisi won the presidency by a distance in 2021 amid wide disqualification of reformist and moderate candidates and also a record low turnout. Considering the fact that all Iranian presidents who have served under Khamenei had been in office for 2 years, Raisi was also widely expected to win a re-election next year. Now, how does Iran government work? According to the constitution, the 88-member Assembly of Experts picks the successor to the supreme leader after his death. Members of this assembly are, however, pre-vetted by Iran's Guardian Council, which is a powerful 12-member body charged with overseeing the elections and legislations. The Assembly of Experts have become increasingly hardline over the years, clerics overseeing the republic to ensure that it complies with Islamic law. In practice, the supreme leader also carefully manages the ruling system to balance competing interests, advance his own priorities, and most importantly, ensure that no one challenges the Islamic Republic. After Raisi's death, in accordance with Iran's constitution, the vice president, Mohammad Mokbir, who's a relative unknown, became the caretaker president, with elections now mandated within 50 days. Now, that vote will likely be carefully managed to produce a president who maintains the status quo, which means that Iran will continue to impose some degree of Islamic rule and crack down on dissent. Now, what happens if the supreme leader's son succeeds him? Well, leaders of the Islamic Republic, going back to 1979 revolution, have portrayed their system as being superior not only to the democracies of the West, but to the military dictatorships and monarchies that prevail across the Middle East. The transfer of power from the supreme leader to his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, could spark unrest and anger not only among Iranians who are already critical of the clerical rule, but also among supporters of the system who might see it as it being un-Islamic. Ebrahim Raisi's death may also just have major implications for Iran, Israel, and the other wider regions. It could also impact oil prices, global markets, and gold prices as well. The sudden and tragic death of the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi comes at a very delicate time for a country that faces unprecedented challenges at home and from abroad. The Islamic Republic has faced several waves of popular protests, most recently after the 2022 death of Mahsa Amini, who had been arrested for allegedly not covering her hair in public. And more than 500 people were killed and over 22,000 were detained in a very violent crackdown. Therefore, the new leader will have to be prepared for the challenges up ahead as the Islamic Republic's economy remains crippled by US sanctions, its young population becoming increasingly uneasy and restless, and most importantly, the country facing increasingly belligerent adversaries in the Middle East and beyond.